Good evening. We are going through the 2019-2020 budget. Phyllis, would you like to take us through?
Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. Tonight, we're going to be covering several different funds. The first one we're going to start off with is the State Street Aid Fund. This fund is basically the revenues come from fuel taxes. And as you know, or if many of you are aware of, we now receive a new fuel tax. It's the 2018 tax, I believe is what it's called. It's the one where they went to the legislative, reduce the food tax and increase the fuel taxes. This is the part that we get for that. So you've noticed that the actual for 2015 and 16 went up slightly, and then in 17-18, when the tax actually went into effect, it generated us about $198,000 more in fuel taxes. We're anticipate budgeting about $1,070,000, just to kind of split the difference a little bit there. The only other revenue that comes into this fund is interest earnings, so that gives us a total of $1,070,500. The expenses that are associated with the 121 fund is most of our street lighting and then any road paving that we do, and then we do have a bond debt that we expense out of this department. For the street lighting, looking at prior years, actual expenses, I have set the budget for 2019-20 to $285,000, and on paving, I took the difference of what the street lighting and the bond debt was, and pretty much used the rest of the revenue, with the exception of just a little bit for the paving, which the paving we're going to budget about $700,000, and Garland generally provides us with a list of those streets as we get closer to the new budget year, if he hasn't already gotten a list together. So, and then of course we have the bond debt. So that gives a total of $1,056,000 for expenses and $1,070,000 for the revenue, which leaves us a surplus of $14,000 that will go back into the reserve fund for that State Street Aid Fund. Do we have any questions on that one? Okay, we'll move right along to the Senior Center. Senior Center, we pretty much receive about the same funds every year in revenue. We get $46,000 approximately from Rutherford County. We have some senior activities such as lunches, some crafts, sales, that generate about $5,000, sorry.
Ooh, I was about to say.
It was $500,000, but not quite. And then we have revenue that we generate from the farmers market that we do deposit into the senior fund, and the seniors also have fundraisers. I estimated that really lightly at $1,000, and I know that there's a lot of those activities going to be going on, so hopefully that will that revenue will increase and be more than the $1,000. And then we have the GNRC grant, which is approximately $26,800. We have some revenue that we generate from hot dog sales, and then we have $55,000 that is donated from the general fund. And the expenses that are associated with the Senior Center consist of wages, which we have one full-time, 2 part-time people, and then we have postage. We budgeted around $1,000. We have a little bit of stationery, $300.
We have 1 full-time, 2 part-time?
Yes.
That's what's budgeted for right now.
That's what it's budgeted for?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you.
Electricity, looking at prior years' trends, I lowered that just a little bit to $6,500. Water, we average, somewhere between $400 and $500, so I'm going to estimate that budget at $500. Gas is in propane gas, budgeting at approximately $5,000 based on prior year's activities. We have the Comcast subscription, which is about $126 a month or $1,700 a year. And then we allocate about $3,000 for repair and maintenance, $1,500 for building maintenance, meals and entertainment, we budget $300. Office supplies and materials, we budgeted around $1,200. Small items of equipment, $200. Operating supplies, $1,500. $15,000 for food. Janitorial supplies, about $800. Fuel for vehicles, about $1,800. Of course, there's bank service charges of around $500. Programs, we're allocating about $7,000 to programs. The senior flower fund, $800, and the expenses associated with any lunches that the seniors put on, we estimate about $300. So that's a total of $132,400 in expenses for the senior fund, as compared to a little less than around $130,000 in revenue, and then that will leave us in excess of $2,730 to put back into the reserves. Any questions on the senior fund? Okay. We'll move right along to the drug fund. In the drug fund, we receive fines from the county, or from the state office, I'm sorry, and then we receive a little bit of funds from impound, where we impound vehicles. We're estimating about $25,000 in fines, $3,000 in impound fees. Confiscated cash, this is cash that has been awarded, not necessarily cash that we've confiscated. We do collect a lot more than this during the year, but we cannot claim the money until it's actually been awarded to the city. Because right now, I think there's probably about $150,000 in the bank account, but we can only spend about $50,000 of it because we have about $100,000 that hasn't been awarded to us. And then we also have a transfer from the general fund of about $30,000. And then we have, that gives us a total of about $123,000 when you take into consideration we're going to put back about $25,000. I'm sorry, we're going to spend about $25,000 out of reserves for the drug fund according to the budget expenses. And if we look at the budget expenses for 19 and 20, the chief has asked for $20,000 to be in employee education and training, $2,000 in for membership and registration fees, $1,000 in for repair and maintenance on vehicles. This is mainly to repair and maintenance on seized vehicles to get them where we can move them around or get them out of the lot. We have towing expense of around $1,000. We have travel expenses of $12,000. Small items equipment, which is SWAT weapons and ammunition, for $30,000. Operating supplies, the chief has requested $5,000. Firearm supplies, additional firearm supplies of $25,000, and $1,000 for bank service charges. And we also do some nonprofit donations out of the drug fund. We do $5,000 to Tennessee Association for Chief of Police. We do $4,000 for the Tennessee Public Safety Network. And then we do $7,000 to the Child Advocacy Center. And those are going to be added to the nonprofit list whenever you get the next revised list, which I will hand out tonight. You'll see that we have added those to the nonprofit list. So you'll see that again there. And then we have the DARE program that we allocate about $10,000 a year to the DARE program. So that gives us the total expenses of approximately $123,000. And we had right at $100,000 in revenue, so that means that we're going to be taking about $25,000 out of reserves to meet the budget needs for 19 and 20. Any questions out of the drug fund?
I have one silly question, just so I know. How long does it normally take for the,
Cash to get awarded?
yeah, just, is there like a Average, I'm just curious.
There's no set time. I mean, we're sitting on now a large one that, that was done in December 2016 that we've never gotten any out of.
Never mind, carry on.
Most of them settle within a year, but this one was a big federal one, and it may even go into the equitable sharing, but,
I had no idea.
most of them are somewhere around 6 months to a year,
Okay.
Yeah, we've been waiting on that one for 3 years at least.
yeah.
That's a good chunk of change though when it does hit.
Yeah, we had a $72,000 deposit last month from one, of course, we can't, it's not ours yet, but
No, but.
we get to deposit in our account, we just can't spend it.
We can earn interest off of it,
Yeah,
basically.
a little bit,
Yeah.
a couple pennies. Okay, next we'll move on to the equitable sharing. Used to this fund was, combined with the drug fund, and a couple of years ago, we got dinged by Department of Justice for commingling of funds, and they've asked us to separate this fund. And they have a lot of controls, a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, a lot of laws that go along with this fund, so we have now set it up as a separate fund. I've estimated that we're going to receive approximately $80,000 in federal revenue sharing, and this is where our guys work with the federal government and do large cases. And we get a percentage. There's other, every organization that works on this, on each particular case, they get a percentage of whatever funds that they confiscate. And so we never know, how much we're going to get or when we're going to get it. So the chief has, the only thing that we have budgeted for next year is $30,000 other than service charges. And we have budgeted $30,000 for undercover operations, and that's where our guys use drug money to go out and do their jobs. So we have $30,000 expenses, and we have approximately $80,000 in revenue, which is going to put us with a surplus if we receive $80,000. That's just an estimate. That would allow us to put about $50,000 back into our fund balance for this fund, and right now we're sitting at approximately $340,000. And I know the chief, I know his plans for this money is to buy vehicles at some point in time, but he has to get a lot of things approved from them before he can do that, and he can certainly do that at any time. And I think that's what his future plans are going to be. Any other questions about equitable sharing? Okay, moving right along to stormwater, we'll start off with revenues. We estimated the interest income to be about $1,800. The residential stormwater fees, approximately $600,000. The non-residential, which is our commercial and industrial, we're estimated about $650,000. And you'll notice that that has gone up over the last couple of years. But of course, our commercial and industrial new development has also gone up. So we get more stormwater fees as we get into more businesses. The stormwater fee for residential is basically $3.50 per household, so it's very minimal. We anticipated collecting about $17,000 in penalties and late fees, which gives us a total revenue of $1,268,800. As far as expenses, of course, we have, wages and benefits, and those have all been adjusted by our step system, which is approximately 3%. So we can kind of skip over the wages and benefits. Going down to education and training, the Stormwater Department has requested just a small increase in that by $200. We are decreasing the fees by $50, which is MS4, which is our stormwater fees that we pay to the state. Postage, we're leaving the budget at about $500. Printing and stationery, $300. We decreased that by $200. Subscriptions, we decreased that by $500. Membership and registration fees, we decreased that by $2,000. Public relations, that's for the Project WET, we're keeping that at the same amount, $8,000. Advertising, about $500. Electricity, $6,500. And of course, we look at, we come up with a budget by looking at prior year's trends and where we think we're going to come in at. Water, estimating about $500 expense for that. Comcast, we increased that a little bit to $550 for 19 and 20. Telephones, we reduced that by $1,000. Accounting and audit service, we increased that by $500. Architectural and engineering construction, we put in $40,000 for that for 19 and 20, and that's to cover any miscellaneous engineering that can or may be done for the stormwater fund. Other professional services, this is for environmental testing, stream sampling. We estimate about $20,000. Repair and maintenance service, we lowered that from $25,000 to $10,000. If we're looking at prior year's trends, you'll notice that those fees have gone, or those services has gone down some. Vehicle maintenance, we did increase that by about $4,500. We have a little bit more of an aging fleet in the stormwater. Ditch and drainage repair, we basically take everything that's left everything that's left between the revenue and all these other expenses. We basically use, input that into the ditch and drainage repair. It doesn't mean we're going to do $219,990, but the $219,990 is there if we need to do projects or ditch and drainage repair. Repair and maintenance for building, we're lowered that to $5,000. Travel is the same at $1,000. Meals and entertainment, we estimated about $500. Street sweeper maintenance, we estimated that at $4,000. Office supplies, $5,000. Small items of equipment, $5,000. Operating supplies, left the budget at $30,000. Food, we did increase that just a little bit to $800. Janitorial budget, we left it at $1,000, and you can see in prior years it's right at $1,000. Clothing and uniforms, we increased that just a little bit. Fuel for vehicles, we left that the same at about $10,000, and looks like we're going to come in, about $9,500 this year, so we should be okay for next year unless the fuel prices go really, really up. Computer maintenance, this is for the Microsoft licensing. We share that fee with other funds such as water and sewer and the general fund. Insurance, this is insurance to cover, the property and liability and automobile. Lease, the $2,400 is the lease agreement that we have with Mark Pirtle. Machinery and equipment rental, we estimate about $6,000 set aside for any kind of equipment rental. Bank service charges about $500, and then the stormwater department has asked for a hammerhead and screening bucket. I believe for $12,000, is that right, Adam? Just a hammerhead? Okay. I'll take out that other part of that description.
Can you tell us what a hammerhead is? Just so.
Man, I'm so glad you asked, because
What we used to break rocks. It's really, really big jack.
does it go on the end of a piece of equipment?
Yeah.
An attachment? Okay.
The unit we have is about 10 years old. We've replaced the seals in it 3 times.
Which is pretty costly.
It's about $1,500 every time we replace the seals in it. It's wore out at this point because we break a lot of rocks.
Not in Laverne, you don't?
Thank you.
So the total of expenses for the stormwater is $1,268,800. And we're basically utilizing all the revenue. So if we expend everything that we budgeted for in expenses, we'll have zero surplus. This fund does have approximately $4.7 million. It should have approximately $4.7 million in their fund at the end of the fiscal year. Any other questions about stormwater?
Yeah, I have a question. If we issue a PO for repairs on the private side, where does that money come out of? Does it come out of this number here?
A PO on the private side?
Yeah, if the stormwater subcontracts something, is that money, where does that money come out of?
It's according to what, I mean, if it's for any kind of ditch,
If it's for like a ditch repair,
Yeah, ditch repair.
yeah, it would come out of the ditch repair line.
line item 265.
Which we're anticipating doing more of, or if it's like machinery repair of the issue, it comes out of machinery repair line.
Okay, that's the 219,000 for
Yes.
the repairs. And is that something that's just, because we went from 48,000 to, 219,000,
Yeah.
what's the,
And the reason we did do that, if you'll notice, I have a note at the bottom, on line about 67. We basically plug the difference. If I take out that $268,000, then I'm gonna have right at $1 million in expenses, but I'm gonna have about $1.2 million in revenue. So it's just a routine that we go ahead and put, the rest of the revenue minus expenses in this line item. It's called ditch and drainage repair. And it's just kind of like money that's set aside to do any kind of repairs. So any revenue that we collect during the year, we anticipate spending all of it in stormwater expenses, including the ditch repair.
my concern, and I'm just trying to learn this. So in 2015, in ditch and drainage repair, we had 3,280. 2015, 2016. 2016, 2017, we had 9,944. 2017, 2018, 941. 2018, 2019, 10,000. 2018, 2019 fiscal year budget, 48,729. And then for 2019, 20, it's, the number's extraordinary, $219,990. So can you just go into a little more depth on?
We don't know what we're gonna spend in that line item at all. We don't know the first dollar that we're gonna spend in that line item. So, like I said, what we do is we take the balance of all the expenses, we add up all the expenses, and then we subtract that from the revenue. Whatever we have left, we plug it into this line item to cover any unforeseen repairs that we might have during the year. It's a budget number, it's not an actual number, it's just kind of like a big rough estimate. There's nothing attached to that $219,000. There's no projects that I can tell you that we're gonna do. This is just money that's there for them to utilize in ditch repair if they need it for that year. I can take that out and we could put some other number in. We could put 50,000 in, and then we could take the other 169 and put it in reserves. It's kind of like it's a plug, it's just a plug.
And usually at the end of the year, whenever we're going through actuals, whatever is left over
It
is
just
going to
goes
be
into
put into reserves automatically.
So wouldn't it make more sense to have that in the other fund, and then if they need to make a budget amendment, it comes back from in front of the board? If they had 50,000 and they exceeded the 50,000, or was going to, I mean, they really can't predict what's going to happen.
Right.
We could have a major flood and you guys need money. The class I took at MTAS that Bruce signed me up for on budgeting, they kind of use this as an example, that's why we have the board to come back to the board and do a budget amendment if you need more money. So I'm just a little confused on why we would.
Think of it as sort of as a placeholder, actually, to balance the budget, it just balances the budget. And then at the end of the year, if we haven't spent it, then we roll it over.
Right.
But for now, it's just that placeholder to give us a balanced budget, and in case we have to pull money from somewhere, that's where we'll have it. We won't have to then get permission to go into the reserves to get it.
We don't have to do a budget amendment. It keeps the,
We do have several capital projects that are planned for next year's budget that, while I don't think it'll add up to the 200 some odd.
and that number will change as, yeah, and that number may change as we talk about capital in our next budget meeting, budget workshop next week.
That would be from the capital budget
The
line
capital-
item too.
No, to come out of ditch.
Come out of ditch repair.
Basically, that is the capital budget for the stormwater.
and stormwater.
So basically, you just go back to Phyllis and get the money instead of coming before us for a budget amendment.
That's.
Right, it's already
It's,
there.
it's already there.
But this is not the norm, according to your documentation.
Ac-
It is,
back.
if,
It is.
it is.
What you're seeing there are actuals, not budgets for past years, so it is, pretty typical.
In years past, the stormwater department hasn't relied overly on subcontracted work. We are looking to change that just to do some more major projects, so.
If you're looking at the 2018-19 budget, a lot of that excess money that you see in the 2019-20 budget is actually down here under line 944. We budgeted last year $120,000 for like a pickup truck and a dump truck. So that took away from that ditch and repair. So when we start talking about capital, we'll probably be doing the same thing. We'll take money away from that ditch repair, put it down here in the bottom under capital, and then that will lower the ditch repair. Because there's, I mean, we can do it either way. The stormwater fund is a unique fund in that, you know, it's,
They specify what the money can be used for. I mean, true.
except for the ditch repair.
Right,
we
and that's
don't
why
know.
my concern is, let's don't allocate, or say we're gonna put $219,000 in there, because that's the only line item that you're not governed on. So why would, it's, to me,
Well, it's just much easier to not have to do budget amendments when the money is already there. We're not gonna spend it unless it's approved by the board. If a project comes up, it's gonna come before the board, and you'll see where the money's being spent.
well, if it was pre-approved, though, we wouldn't know nothing about it.
Yes, you would.
Anything over 25,000 would come before the board.
It'd have to be bid out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Anything over 25 has to be bid out.
Right, but we could do 4 projects at 24,000, we would know nothing about.
So 24,000 doesn't really get you much project.
And you find out about them at your annual stormwater meeting, because I would go into detail.
So we find out about it once a year.
It would also
That's
show up in
how
our,
often we meet,
our
yes, sir.
monthly budget, our finance report, as well as
Correct, of course,
stormwater
yes.
report.
I mean, it's just a good question to ask, because it's a 75% increase from what's been spent. You know, that's a pretty major,
Well, I will speak to what Adam was saying. We have a couple projects in mind for this upcoming fiscal year to try to get rid of some long-time drainage concerns, and because it's older areas of town, there's gonna have to be a lot of work done to fix these problems, because they weren't designed for the stormwater regs that we have now. So we will see quite a jump in what gets used this year because of these projects that we have in mind to benefit the citizens of Laverne.
what projects are those?
One of them, we're gonna have a survey, a construction grade survey done, along the area, that's not Dove, of Deer, it's not Dove Creek, what's that subdivision? Is that Dove Creek? Okay, I got my subdivision mixed up. And because,
Dove Creek?
yeah, we have so much flooding through there, so we're gonna have a complete survey done and see if we can essentially go from bottom to top. It obviously can't be lower than the creek, so we're gonna see if we can go from the creek back, how much work that we can do, just basically digging it up, starting it over to try to get some better relief for the people out there. That's gonna be an enormous undertaking. We've never done anything like that before. This will be very unique to our department, so we cannot anticipate how much that will cost.
Right.
Is that creek that goes under the road right there in that dip?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's, Finch
Yeah,
Spring.
yeah. I know it well.
And what were the other projects?
There's some work that's planned just off of, Old Nashville, that's
Yeah,
it's
you
all,
know,
everything
yeah.
was outlined in the capital.
Yeah, I think
budget,
it is
but-
Centennial, because when you turn left at Jefferson Pike, when you turn right at Centennial, so there's some work to be done through there where basically people had filled in so much that they actually have the ditch going backwards, and it's going onto a person's property instead of where it's supposed to go, so that's gonna be a pretty large one, and then there was one other,
You've got Eastwood, Woodsong,
Eastwood, that's what it
stream
is.
monitoring, and the drainage master plan.
Yeah. So we have some larger projects that, will be outside of the scope of what my 5-man crew and the pieces of equipment we have can handle. So that from the survey all the way to the actual construction will have to be bid out. We won't be able to do
Right.
that in-house. So you'll see a substantial increase in what we spend for these projects this year, but I think they're very worthwhile.
Oh, of course. So if we were to issue from your department a PO, how does that work to the private side? Does it go from you to Phyllis? And then Phyllis issues the PO?
If it's a PO, typically they're under $10,000. So
Okay.
if it was something I had personally requested, I would request a PO from Felicia. I would sign as the requester. Anything over $5,000, I believe, would go to Kyle or Bruce. They would sign off on it, and if that's as much as it was, that would pretty much be the end of it. Anything over 25,000 would go to bid.
Right.
Then we would have to award, the board would have to award the contract, everyone would get to sign, and then we would just pay it out of accounts, which would be Betsy, who works with us. So it wouldn't actually be a PO for any large scale work.
And I've unhid some columns up on the screen, and if you'll notice, you know, this is the way we have done it in the past, and you'll notice that pretty much every year we have around $200,000 in there. But if I go back to, let's look at 15, 16, 16, 17. 15, 16, we budgeted 236 and then 199. If I go back to 15, 16, we only spent 3280, and then the following year 9944. So we don't spend it unless we need it.
Right.
And it's, you know, then the board has to approve any large expense, you know, large projects or expenses anyway, so.
So at the end of the fiscal year, does that allocated funds, is it used or does
It
it
goes back into the reserves.
back into the reserve?
It stays in the bank account, it stays in the reserves.
All right, thank you for clearing.
And that's where that 4.5, estimating going up to 4.7 is generated, those reserve funds.
Yes. Any other questions about stormwater?
They don't use a lot of Comcast TV over there. Everybody else's are $4,000 or $5,000, yours is $500.
That's because our department's so awesome. We're
You
always
must
out
not
working.
watch it, you must not watch a lot of TV.
Very humble, very humble.
Always.
Street capital projects, for 19 and 20, we don't have any projects in the works until after we talk to Adam. When we go over capital projects, streets, capital projects next Monday. We anticipate receiving about $300,000 in road impact fees and about $500 in interest. The only expenses that we have budgeted for next year are any additional professional fees associated with Industrial Boulevard. And I don't think we'll have any, but we wanted to go ahead and put a little bit of money there just in case there are already any legal fees or professional fees that we get invoices for. And then, of course, we have bank service charges. Adam has, I think, a few on the capital project list for next week for streets. So we will talk about those when we get to that. You know, other than that, in the past, we haven't had a lot of street work. We're doing some engineering, I guess it's engineering currently work on the Old National Highway. And then if you'll notice in the forecast for this year, we have the Industrial Boulevard. That was another piece of property that we had never closed out on as far as purchasing from the Waldron Road project. I believe, is that correct? No, not Waldron Road?
That was back when they did industrial back in
Boulevard.
probably 2001 or so,
Yeah.
and that the state handled that project. So this is a state attorney, I think, that's been for years working on closing that track. So we really don't have anything to do with it. We end up with the cost though.
Okay. And that was it. I think this was the last piece of property.
The best we've found is, I think it's somewhere around the pilot. I don't think it's pilot, but I think it's somewhere around there. It's one of those property owners. You know, that's whenever we was doing the Waldron Road project and was disputing the cost and stuff like that, that's how we really found out where this was coming from.
That's the 108,000?
No, that's that, she's got 10 in there right now.
Now,
Well,
what about the
18, 19,
the 108 that we
yes.
just,
Oh, 108.
Yeah,
you know, we just settled that.
that's the one that was just settled. We think it's the last property.
Yeah. Yeah, that one
Is
is.
that one the last one? Do we know on industrial?
So do
We believe it is.
so it's 108,000?
And that's what we paid?
That's in the current fiscal year.
And we don't know what it was for, or we do know what it was for?
It was to settle a right-of-way acquisition for the widening of Industrial Boulevard that was done, 18 whatever years ago. And we've been paying fees on it for years, but the state had never actually closed that acquisition out when they took that property. And so it was closed out this year. That's what that expense is for the 108,000. So as far as we know, we should be done with that project finally.
We got a paid in full receipt,
I think we got
Did we
something.
get anything that says
I hope we've got
we're
something.
done?
20 years.
Is that a bad question to ask?
With the state, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, we were getting legal fees that we didn't know why we were getting them, and when we questioned them, they were, it's associated with this boulevard. Well, why are we still paying?
As long as it says industrial on the invoice, we can slip it in City Hall.
I have just one thing to add, and that is that I've requested the grant writer to find us, hopefully some funds for crosswalks to get across Murfreesboro Road at 4 or 5 different intersections at the main points of town, where they are, we're talking about the big intersections. So, just wanted to put that on the table, be advised, we're looking for money for that.
Okay.
We've also put in for, or we will, Bruce and I met with some TDOT officials a month or two ago about a 95.5 sidewalk grant. Alternative transportation can be used for sidewalks, bike paths. So whenever that opens up, we'll be applying for that as well.
In this revenue here, would this be for the regular streets paving or anything
No,
like that?
that's done, the street paving is done out of State Street Aid, which was the very first one we talked about tonight. We have, I think, a $700,000 budget, and Garland will will put together a list of the streets that he feels necessary to pay for during the 1920 budget year.
Part of it at the retreat, not to complete.
All right, thank you.
We'll move on to the Parks Capital, and it's pretty much like the street capital, not a lot of activity going on. We don't have any projects as such. We anticipate receiving about $30,000 in park impact fees, about $100 in interest, and then we have about $700 in service charges, which will leave us with a surplus of $29,400, which puts the fund balance for this fund or somewhere around $418,000. And I know that there'll be some discussion when we start going over capital projects about some of the Greenway extension. And this is where that will get budgeted at, our portion of that. Any questions on Park Capital?
So our total balance is 417,000
Yes,
and 593 number.
that's what we anticipate it to be at the end of the year, end of June.
And as activities and sponsors and baseball and all that stuff, do they pay into that? Does
No.
that money go into this?
No, that's the regular parks and general fund. This right here is mainly when we do projects,
Okay,
large projects.
gotcha.
And we get grants. A lot of times we get grants and we'll have our matching part in this fund. The next fund is the police impact. Pretty much like the other two funds, it's, we get some impact fees. We're anticipating about $40,000, about $50 in interest income, and then we have service charge of about $400. This account has about $200,000 in it right now. I think the chief is kind of letting this one build up. With this police impact fee fund here, we're very limited what we can spend this money on. Pretty much we can only spend it on either building improvements or vehicles, and we can only do like one vehicle per year. So there's some rules and guidelines that we have to go by on the police impact fund. And the chief is, like I said, he's kind of let this one build up because we spent some money out of it back in 15, 16 we spent about 132,000, which dropped our balance down to 51, and slowly we're getting it back up.
So with this revenue, could this be used for like the radio communication tower that we had to amend the budget for, things like that?
I'm not sure if towers are included. Usually if it's a one-time purchase, it could be, but of course, you know, there's not enough money in here to do that big of a project.
Right.
But
Who controls the budget like that?
the chief says, you know, he does.
Who does it? Why, I mean, what you said, it could only be used for certain things?
Well, that's done by the I guess, I don't know if it's federal government or,
Well, with impact fee, that's basically mandated by the ordinance where we set up the impact fees from originally. So it says what you can and can't use it for. And it's typically like if you hire a new officer, you can use the impact fee to pay for a vehicle for that new officer,
For that one officer?
for that one officer. But you can't like buy a replacement vehicle
Right.
with impact fee.
you can't pay utilities because you
can't,
can't
yeah.
pay anything that's
You can't
reoccurring.
pay anything that's really operating at all.
Mhm.
It has to be like equipment or a vehicle, something like that.
I'm learning.
Okay, our last fund of the night is the water and sewer fund. We'll go down through the revenues. We have two sources of rental income that we get from tower property rental. We get funds from Sprint and TowerCo. We get approximately $29,000 a year from Sprint, $20,000 from TowerCo. In our metered water sales, we anticipate about $4.8 million for next year. For our fire service and fire hydrants, it's not really a hydrant rental, but it's a fire service and hydrants. We anticipate about $67,000. Water inspection fees, $6,000. Backflow device inspection, we anticipate receiving about $18,500. Backflow device permits, about $2,400. Disconnect fees, we should generate about $85,000. Penalties, and we should be about $105,000. Installation charges, $70,000. Miscellaneous revenue is $10,000. Sewer fees, approximately $6.8 million. And $4,000 for sewer inspection charges, $162,000 for penalties, late fees on sewer payments. And then scrap revenue, we anticipate about $1,000.
Excuse me, what's the difference between the forfeit discount penalties and forfeit discount penalties?
One is water, one's sewer.
Okay.
We have budgeted about $6,500 for interest earnings, and then we budgeted $3,000 for tap fees associated with irrigations. And then water meter charges, we anticipate about $35,000 for water meters. And then we have tap fee revenue. We budgeted $150,000 for 1920 for the water tap fees, $300,000 for the sewer tap fees. And that gives us a total revenue of $12,674,000, $12,674,400. And I'll go over the bottom of this when we get through talking about expenses. Okay, the first department that we'll go through is the water treatment plant. The first line item that we have for the water treatment plant is what's called other wages. It's line item 129, and I'll go ahead and explain that one again. We have employees all throughout the city, directors mainly, that do things for other departments. Like Bruce, he oversees the whole city, so some of his wages gets allocated to stormwater and some of it to water sewer. And the water treatment plant is part of the water sewer fund, so some of the wages get allocated to the water treatment plant. we have, like, the water billing department collects the stormwater fees, so some of they get some money back from stormwater for collecting their stormwater fees. My department, we work for stormwater and water sewer, so we do all, all bank reconciliations and all the budgets and audits and stuff, so we allocate some of our department back to the water sewer fund. IT department works for everybody, so we allocate some of the funds back and forth, just so that the general fund is not hit with the total wages of somebody that's actually working for all three funds. So that's what that $140,000 is. And that number will change as we get closer to finalizing the budget. I will go through and do a whole analysis because wages have changed, benefits have changed. So we take a certain percentage, of the wages, and we allocate it back to the water treatment plant, the water fund, the sewer fund, all those various departments. So when we get almost done with the budget, I'll go through and these numbers will change a little bit.
So with all the restrictions with the water and sewer fund, is that normal to do?
Yeah.
What would you call that? Just sharing?
We call it wage allocation because we're allocating wages from general fund to water sewer fund to stormwater fund, and some wages even go back. We took back over all of the electricity bills from the water treatment plant. In the previous contract, the water treatment plant was paying for the electricity. In the recent, I guess in last year's contract, they turned that back over to us. Therefore, that's why you see such a skew in the numbers over the previous years and the electricity part of that. Let me get the heading up here.
Was that like negotiated through the new contract renewal?
I think it was in the 17-18 contract, Bruce.
Yeah, it was
Of
approved
18.
in 17, went into effect, I think, February of 18,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
So they got a raise pretty much, right?
Well, no, they lowered their fees.
Oh, they did lower the
Yeah.
fees.
Yeah, they lowered their fees. Yeah, we were paying them over.
Essentially, what we were doing was paying for electricity plus their overhead on top of that, so it didn't make sense. So we took it back over so we wouldn't have to pay that extra overhead to a private company to basically pay our bill.
That makes sense.
For water, we budgeted $3,000 for telephones and cell phones. We're budgeting $6,000. We lowered that by $1,000. Accounting and audit services, everybody gets a piece of that audit fee. We are allocating $4,200 for that fee. Engineering, $50,000. This is for any kind of potential miscellaneous engineering that's not associated with the project. And it could be, these engineering fees are like if somebody calls Griggs and Maloney to just come out and do a quick check on something, well, Griggs and Maloney's going to charge us for that. So if they write any kind of letters for us, they're going to charge us for that. So we always put some money in there to cover those fees. Fines and penalties. Occasionally in the past, the water treatment plant has been fined by the state, and sometimes we absorb the cost, sometimes they absorb the cost, sometimes we split the cost. Other professional services, this is where you'll see the contract price. For 1920, each year they increase the contract by the price index, which is usually somewhere around 2 to 4%. So I try to use the same rule of thumb as they do. In the repair and maintenance service, we lowered that down to $10,000. Repair and maintenance building, we left that at $50,000 for next year. Water storage maintenance, we do get a water storage fee from the state, Bruce? Is that
That should be Corps of Engineer.
Corps of Engineer? We budget for chemicals, and this is just to cover us in case the water treatment plant goes over in their chemical budget to us. we always put a little bit of money there just in case we have some unforeseen overages. Of course,
So it's got in their contract on that they're to pay the chemicals and also the
Right.
repairs and maintenance on that too. So we put money in there
yeah,
for
we
them.
still put money in just in case, because if we go over a certain amount, you know, we want to make sure that we have some money in our budget to cover anything. Or if we, you know, maybe if we require them to use a different chemical, or, you know, we want to do some additional lab work or something and we contract it out, this will cover any of those kind of fees. As you'll see, that we haven't really spent anything in the last few years, and even the forecast that I have in there, it's not an actual number, it's just an estimate. And I really don't think we'll spend anything this year. It's just a little safeguard in there in case we do need to have any funds set aside for that. We have, we budgeted $82,000 for insurance, and that's property and vehicle liability insurance, workers' comp, $485,000 for depreciation, $1,500 for property taxes, and this is for one of the properties that we have a cell tower on that's out there by the water treatment plant.
And number 540, what exactly is that? Is that for like your car if it depreciates?
Depreciation, in the water sewer fund, it's a whole accounting nightmare. When we purchase a vehicle or any large equipment, we budget for it, but if you'll notice, in the past years, you don't see it as an expense, because I have to take that out and then set it up on a depreciation schedule. So basically, if we buy a $20,000 vehicle and the depreciation value is the depreciation is 5 years, we're going to depreciate it $4,000 a year. You're not going to see the expense, you're going to see the depreciation.
Okay.
It's kind of a non-cash transaction. It's just a crazy accounting rule that we have to follow. In the general fund, we expense everything. We don't depreciate. But in the water sewer fund, you should have learned that in your class.
Yeah, that's what I was bringing up. They did talk about that, so I was just.
Yeah, it's managed totally different.
Yeah, it is. And then they do if it doesn't check and balance, you got to fill out that other, what's the form? If you use something, you're allowed to use certain things as long as it's affiliated with the water and sewer fund, but if you go over the number, you have to file something.
If you
I don't know what it was. I was
Yeah.
trying to pay attention. It was complicated.
If you can't use water sewer fund money like for a general fund project, you can do it, but you have to get permission from the state.
Yeah.
And you have to pay it back before the end of the year.
Right.
So you may be thinking about like
Yeah, that's what it is. Before the end of the year, you had to have
you have to clear
the
it.
fund had to be back to its original
Right,
balance.
right. For sewer maintenance, of course, we have wages for all of our sewer guys, and benefits. Those have been adjusted accordingly. Again, we have that Object Code 129, which is other wages, which is allocation. I think our first non-payroll related line would be line 148, which is employee education and training. We budgeted that at the same amount as prior year. We're running somewhere around $2,000. Postage, we anticipate about $400, $100 in printing and stationery, $200 for subscriptions, $5,000. We increased the membership registration fees, and this covers the Tennessee One Call subscription and TAUD. Whatever that is. Mike Dietz is here, he can explain that.
Tennessee Authority Utility District, we get discounts on like training or continuing education, certification, something like that. Log in and
Electricity, we budgeted for next year $88,000. It went up just a little bit last year, and looks like it's going up a little bit this year. For water, we budgeted $600. For sewer, and this is the Metro water and sewer invoices that we get every month to take our sewer to Metro.
That's what Metro charges us to take our waste.
And we discussed last year, Phyllis, Metro was looking at a rate study Do we know if they came back with any results on that?
Actually, I just got a letter about that the other day. It's preliminary, I believe. Actually, it was email. I believe it's going up by, it's either 1 or 2 cents per 100 cubic feet, or however they measure it. I'll forward that to you. I don't remember the exact amount.
I have built in a 3% increase in here, so that should cover.
It's not a big change because they did do the rate study, so it's not the normal 2 or 3%, whatever it is we normally get.
So they charge by like cubic feet?
It's
100 cubic feet.
100
CC.
cubic feet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
CCU,
they'll have, yeah. Well, they'll have CCF on it, I believe.
CCF, sorry, CCF.
Where we
And of course,
charge
We got
by-
everything in gallons, so.
We
it's-
charge by 1,000 gallons, they charge by 100 cubic feet.
Mm.
Which
And I
is
believe
what,
that's-
800 something
I
gallons?
think it's
can't remember.
1,720 gallons is a cubic foot,
It's not that much.
Kyle.
I didn't study for that test.
1,720 gallons is a cubic foot.
I can ask Siri.
Ask Siri.
What is it, Adam, 718? Yeah, I know that, but
Look at Adam over there.
So it's right around 700-ish.
I think it's 718.
Seven?
718, I think is what you're looking for, the number.
I know it was a long math equation when I asked her that rate in 2012. It took some thinking.
A lot of sludge.
So we pay a lot of money to get rid of our waste.
We do.
We do.
Yes.
We do it. And in this number that you see here, there is also capital, money built into that.
748 gallons.
See, I'm-
748, dang,
I just had the 1 and the 4.
everybody was wrong.
I wouldn't, I had no idea. Where's that meter at?
We've got,
Next to a meter somewhere.
Hurricane
between here?
we
Creek,
got one at Hurricane Creek, one at
Bridgestone.
Bridgestone, one that we don't use at Builders Transport, which is off Bridge, that's one of them off Bridgestone. The one that's at Bridgestone we use is SW20, that's one Lower East Hurricane that's been over for years, or we have all the overages that, since we did that interceptor project, hopefully that's going down, but that was like March 19th, we shifted that over, so I'll just say so far, it looks like it's went down, but, you know, that's the line that was under the creek,
Just on the honest system.
so.
hang on a minute, I'll pull up a spreadsheet.
That's right.
You looking for how many? It's 5. We don't use one of them though.
I keep track monthly of all of the different meters. And here is, this, before you, it shows, this is the amount of
20, 40, 26.
cubic feet, or 100 cubic feet that goes through the meters. And a lot of times, if you see any huge increases, it's due to infiltration, or you know, when we have a lot of rain. If you'll notice in December, let's look at February.
Yeah, I was fixing to say February.
Do we
so.
still do that like we did back in the day where we had to go manually read those and turn?
No, it's all done on computer. I basically download these. I don't know, Phyllis, I don't know where you're getting these numbers if you get a different spot, but I send them to Phyllis and,
That's where it comes from.
we gotta send it all in, but it's all done.
We used to have to go to each pump station.
No, they
open
still
it
go to
up,
the pump station. That's, yeah,
Open it
they still
up.
do that.
Write it down.
Yeah, they still do that.
Yeah.
But we,
Another stain there.
Oh, yeah, that's,
but these are all the meters that we have, and if anybody ever needs any kind of history or anything on those meters, I do keep this spreadsheet, keep track of it. I even keep track of all the increases, you know, the annual increases that we get. Okay, go back to propane or natural gas. We budget $1,500 next year. Cell phones, $10,500. Of course, audit service, $4,400. Architectural and engineering services, this would be any miscellaneous invoices from CTI that are not associated to a project. And we have other professional services, I think which is again, Tennessee One Call, We have repair and maintenance, which is repairing manholes, CTR coatings, fees for Metro, other than, our normal monthly fee, maintenance, some of the core renewals. We budgeted $5,000 for repair and maintenance on vehicles. We budgeted $4,000 for repair and maintenance on the building. Fleet, in the general fund fleet budget, we budget every year for, well, we don't budget every year, but we often have expenses that go through the fleet department where they will go and purchase items or do oil changes or put tires on or whatever. And we take those fees out of fleet and charge it back to sewer. So it's another repair and maintenance vehicles, but it's done by the fleet department instead of, taking the vehicle to a repair shop.
So it's like internal billing.
Yeah. We put in $1,000 for travel. I know Mike's guys have got some classes they want to go to, then there's some travel associated with that. Office supplies and materials, we run about $2,400 a year. We budgeted that again. Small items of equipment, we budgeted $2,500. Operating supplies, now this would cover the Southern Sales and Wascon. That would be for,
Would that be like grinder pumps and things like that? And you guys are repair and replacing in-house too, right?
We repair and replace what we can in-house. All their pumps come with a 5-year warranty.
Right.
So we monitor and tag everything that goes in or out. It comes in, it's under that 5 years.
Just send it out.
If we can rebuild them in-house, we rebuild them in-house. If they're too far gone, then we don't put them. So
Take the parts you can save.
yes, we take the bare parts we can save, put them on a shelf, and then put the rest in the and we get a really good rate for Wascon. Our retrofit's around $1,200. I was actually riding in the truck with one of their reps not that long ago, going around getting some quotes on some of our PRVs for maintenance. And I already talked to another city I will not name, and their price is over $2,000. So we're doing really good right now. They tried to go up on us the last 2 or 3 years, but I talked them out of it. So we'll keep trying to do that.
Good job.
next line item is chemicals. These are the chemicals that are used for odor control, bioxide. Sometimes we're required by Metro to, I guess, use certain chemicals if we have issues going on with the sewer. We budgeted $500 for food, $1,500 for janitorial supplies, $6,500 for clothing and uniforms, $20,000 for fuel for vehicles, $8,000 for computer maintenance, which is Microsoft license renewal every year, and then $80,000 for insurance, $1,000 for machinery equipment rental, $800,000 for depreciation. It's a total budget for the sewer department of $4,519,777.
Hey, Phyllis, can I ask you a question on
Uh-huh.
going back to the depreciation? So if we have different, each department seems to have this.
In the water sewer fund,
And at the end of the year, when you say we're under or over, is that depreciation value, is that number in there
yes,
when you talk each month?
yes.
Okay.
And if you don't mind me asking on 533, can you just go over, either you or Michael, the jump this year? Just kind of refresh our memories on that, where it's 15,784.
That was the meter, it's line item 533, that was the meter we had to rent for when Smyrna.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry about that.
I guess that was that,
Yeah, it wouldn't be a meter.
what? That was last year, wasn't it?
I'm saying this is
sewer
this is
department.
sewer, this is
Oh,
not
this
water.
is sewer, sorry. Machinery and equipment rental, did y'all rent any machinery this year?
Give me a second, my bad.
Okay,
15,784?
yes. That's the forecast.
That's a forecast, not an actual.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
but. And
533 in sewer.
Yes.
I got my paperwork on that stuff, I can't see, I apologize, where's one at?
right here, Mike, and that's, it says that we have spent $13,784 as of the end of January. This is for equipment rental, machinery equipment rental?
I can't pinpoint, but I have to go back through my invoices and I can definitely get that to you there.
If you could email me, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Trying to think, did you rent any,
I'm trying to think on the sewer side, only thing,
Did you rent a pump or anything?
You had to rent a pump when,
Stone River Road, the VFD went down, so we had to put a
Yeah.
bypass, or, oh, no, I'm sorry, we had to put a bypass pump in there. That was one thing. Yes, sir, that's what they were talking about.
I was fixing to say, I'd say most of it was that pump rental, because it's not cheap to have to
Yeah, I think it was almost 10
rent those
grand.
pump. Yeah, it's,
Yeah, but I will clarify that and email.
Thank you.
Is that something we don't own as a city, a pump?
No, so they had to actually, this is not just a standard pump, we have VFDs at one of our larger lift stations, variable frequency drive. So it basically ramps up and ramps down depending upon the head pressure. So we don't have that on shelf or the capabilities of wiring that. So we had to have a temporary pump brought in, run for, I think it was almost a week while our pump was sitting out for repairs.
and you're talking about a very large pump.
Yeah, it's 60
not,
grand.
it's not one of the small like trash pump. It's a very large pump with Hollandale, because that's a whole lot of flow coming in.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, I just didn't, I'm not sure what we own or what we don't own in that
Right,
department.
yes, sir, that kind of thing like that, we wouldn't keep.
Good.
And, hopefully we don't need it, and my, going on 10 years, that's the first time we've had to use that stuff.
Yeah, according to Catherine, we're not going to, because she's gonna clean all that ditches and stuff and everything else, so.
So nobody will go potty anymore. He's sewer.
Whole different
I
area.
know, but I'm just saying, she'll keep it clean all the way through.
Hopefully that's not showing up in those ditches.
You know what, I work with the pleasure of.
You are, you are way too serious.
moving on to our water maintenance department. Start off again with wages, those have been adjusted accordingly, just so that we, kind of, remind everyone that back in the previous years, if you look back at 15, 16, 16, 17, you'll notice that the wages jumped quite a bit. That's because we transferred the meter readers out of the water billing department into the water maintenance department, to start up our leak detection department, or leak detection staff under the water maintenance department.
Is any of that grant related?
No.
No.
Our first line item after wages and benefits would be education and training, and that, we put $5,000 in the budget for certifications. Postage, $150, D&J ads, about $200. Membership and registration fees, is for any kind of United Utilities annual maintenance, some of the training, registration fees. Electricity, we budgeted $102, water is $350, gas, as in natural gas or propane, I'm not sure which we're using over there, $3,000. Cell phones, telephones, $7,000, audit fees, $4,200, architectural and engineering fees, which would be Griggs and Maloney most of the time, I guess all the time. This is for miscellaneous engineering.
So what would they help us with on the water meter side?
On the, well, if they have any questions or problems, or if they write up any reports or file any reports for us, or if,
System out, I believe some of the project costs on just the engineering side, when the design phase will come over as well.
yeah, sometimes the design phase.
Some of it, but most of it's just miscellaneous, like if we have a pump station that goes down that our staff, needs assistance on, then if Griggs Maloney is called in, of course, that's an hourly fee at that point, so,
Water and sewer availability.
right. And there's, yeah, water sewer availability letters. There's a lot of different stuff that's in miscellaneous that they would do.
Other professional services, we budgeted $20,000. That covers any professional consultants, Xylem, repair and maintenance service. We budget $250,000. That covers the $175,000 that we put in the budget each year for meter replacement. E-Civis allocation of about $1,000. WWMs, I'm not sure if we still use them or not. Do we still do?
We're gonna have a bid opening, we had a bid opening, and they'll be coming for the board and there on the next month.
But the bulk of this is for meter replacements, and we try to do, we have a meter swap out program, and we try to do about 1,000 a year. And their meters are about $175 each, so that's $175,000. Repair and maintenance building, we put in $2,500. Repair and maintenance roads, this would be if, you know, there's a road needs to be repaired because we dug up the road for water line. Fleet, again, if the fleet department does any kind of repair and maintenance on any of the water department vehicles, that money gets charged out here. Travel, there's a class in Wisconsin that the guys go to. Office supplies and materials, we budget $3,000. Small items equipment, $4,000. This is for miscellaneous equipment and scanners. Operating supplies, we budget $90,000. That covers Southern Pipe, hay supply, core and main. We budget $500 for food, $1,500 for janitorial. Clothing and uniforms, we budget $8,000. That has gone up because of the leak detection guys and the meter readers that we utilize over there. Repair and maintenance supplies, we budgeted $500. Fuel for vehicles, we increased that, well, we budgeted $25,000 for that.
Hey, so the line item 331, gas, oil, and diesel, and then the line item 244 for gas, what's the difference in those two?
One of them is like your heating gas, your heating fuel, your propane or your natural gas. The
At the building.
244,
HVAC.
your building, for your building. I can change that
No,
description.
I was just needing to know.
And the other, of course, is for vehicles. 346 is computer maintenance. That's our Microsoft license renewal that we have every year. We put in $5,000 for hydrant repair, $82,000 for insurance, $5,000 for machinery and equipment rental, which part of that is our copy machine or any miscellaneous pump rentals. Depreciation is $732,000. Bank service charges about $15,000, and that's a grand total budget for the water maintenance department of $2,539,012.
That depreciation is high, ain't it?
Yes, it is.
And Michael, you handle the water and sewer budget, right?
Yes, correct.
So you have, you got a lot of depreciation money in there, right? I guess we'll just find out more in detail what that is as we learn this, right? It just seems like it's some crazy numbers, 800,000, 700,000.
Well, you got to think depreciation, you know, we have some items that are depreciated over 20 years, some over 5 years, some over 10 years. If we have water lines, sewer lines, that's what most of this is, you know.
Tank stations, all those things.
Yeah, the only thing we don't depreciate is land. So I can give you a huge, big, thick printout that tells you, you know, what the depreciation is per item. It's kind of hard to read because it doesn't really give you a good description of what the item is. It's mostly an asset number. But this is generated off of our accounting system, off of our fixed asset system. So it's and so That was, okay, next we're on to our water billing department. If you'll notice here, we've got allocations that are going in and allocations are going out because, you know, we allocate some of wages to them, like Bruce, IT, myself, or my department, and then they get a credit from the stormwater department because they're actually doing the stormwater billing and reconciling or deposits and things like that. So the first line item past all the benefits is, again, employee education and training. They do very little training, but they would like to do more, and we put a little bit of money in here just in case they do get an opportunity. This is, but, you know, that department is so limited on staff, and it's, when they have one person out, it's pretty hard to run that department. Because when you start having, you know, to cover for people going to lunches and stuff, and you know, the department is small as it is, it's just hard for somebody to be out all day for training, even though they would like to go to training.
I think they had everyone there today, and I was hanging around seeing with disconnect day, and people in and out constantly.
Yep. Postage. This is mainly for return checks, mailings, balance transfers, old balance letters, just general communication. If somebody has a credit on their account, or this is just general communication. This is not billing, as in the actual mailed bills that are done by our third party. We budgeted $800 for printing and stationery. We don't have anything in membership and registration fees. Telephones, we budgeted $800. Accounting and audit services, we budgeted $8,200. Other professional services, and this is the line item where this is what it cost us a year for this third party to generate our utility bills and to mail them. That's right around $85,000. Repair and maintenance, this is mainly local government support and annual maintenance. That's around $15,000. 298, line item 298, which is collection fees. This is basically what Fox, keeps out of any collections that they collect on behalf of any accounts that we've turned over to them. So basically, we're giving them $5,000 to $6,000 a year to do collections. Office supplies and materials, we budget $4,500. Small items equipment, $500. Operating supplies, $2,000. Clothing and uniforms, $250. Actually, they don't have uniforms. They do order some shirts every now and then. Of course, we have the Microsoft license again. We have insurance. We have depreciation. Now, this is a small depreciation because it's a small department. They just, back when we had meter readers, we had some vehicles that we purchased, and the depreciation is still being flowed through that department. That gives us a total budget for the water billing department of $604,606. The next section of the water sewer fund is related to interest on the bond debts, bank service charges, and of course bad debt expense. And I just want to point out, because I know we have some new board members, that you haven't seen me talk anything about principal payments for bonds. The accounting rules do not require us to budget that. Even though that comes out of the fund, we don't budget for it. That's why I do a little reconciliation on the first page of the revenues that's up on the screen right now. I don't think you have a copy of it in yours, but what I do is to just give you an overall snapshot of how this works is, we have X number of dollars in cash. We have a change in net position, which basically is any surplus or overages that we have from the prior year. We have so much money that we're spending for capital projects because you don't see our large capital projects like any of the sewer pump station rehabs or any of the AMR project that we had going on, or, give me some other projects we had. You don't see those being budgeted within this, because it's not required, and I wish I could explain, I mean, I wish that there was a good explanation why you don't, but you don't. We add back depreciation, because it's not a cash output. And then, of course, we have our principal payments, which is the debt service fees. The water sewer fund, like I said, the accounting rules are different for that. With that being said, for the 1920 budget year, we have total revenues of $12,674,400. We have expenses of $11,472,006, which means that right now we have a possible surplus next year of $1.2 million, and that just stays in the reserves. It's, you know,
Is that depreciation number in that?
yes, depreciation number is in here. Depreciation is not a cash transaction.
Right.
It's really just a recording number from previous year's purchases.
Okay. So it doesn't add to your cash in hand number?
No. Any other questions about water sewer fund?
Would this fund be affected with what's going on currently with our water billing situation? With the meter reading and things like that, with that coming up to the end?
I'm not understanding what you're asking.
What we talked about several.
Oh, about
Billing 2 months
getting us up to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, billing in arrears? This does not cover any of that.
Okay.
That's a discussion, you know, I guess that we can have, maybe at the next meeting, or, I mean, we can have that discussion now if you want to start it. We have, you know,
But just, I mean, I'd rather you be prepared for the discussion. That way we can know what we're doing.
yeah,
Because we got to talk about it, so if
Yep.
you could just consolidate the data, and so we can, it has to be a time we put it on the shelf and take it off the shelf and put it on the table now.
Right.
So.
And we can put together some scenarios of what, you know, what can be done, or, and what the effect is, but that's about it. Really, we don't have any, I mean, we can estimate what a month's worth of, if we double bill to get us caught up, we can estimate that, or if we decide to give everybody a free month or whatever to get, you know, caught up. We are going to be installing the new, upgrading the software. It probably won't happen till after July 1st, and between now and then is when we really need to talk about that.
Right.
And decide either to do something or continue doing what we're doing.
We just don't want it to hit us, you know, hey, we have 30 days to make a decision. Right now, we have
Right,
60 days.
yeah. And it may be a discussion that we need to have outside of budget workshop, you know, but we do need to have that discussion if we want to pursue making those changes. And I'm not sure, just for everyone else, I know Mike probably knows this, but in our water billing, we bill in arrears, like way in the arrears, almost 2 months in arrears. So when a customer gets their bill this week, it's probably for the middle of, let's see, this is April, it's probably like for the middle of February to the middle of March. And then it's not due to probably the 1st of May, because they have 15 days after, you know. So it's,
That along with what we just voted on writing off, that's a chunk of change.
yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. That's why I brought it up during the budget
And,
discussion.
yeah, it would help tremendously if we
If
could
we
get.
have to, of course, we don't want to put it on the citizens.
Right,
We don't want the city to
take a
write a
loss.
check either,
Mhm.
you know, for the whole. So it's definitely a talking point we need to address.
It makes it really hard when we have customers that close their account, or, you know, they get a large bill and they don't understand why they got a large bill this month, and you try to explain to them in October that was for their end of the summer, you know.
Or if they have a leak, that's a big issue, because
Yeah,
if
if
they got
they
a
have
leak,
a
they don't know
leak.
about it for 2 months because they think they're doing fine, then all of a sudden, 2 months later, they've got a large bill.
Yep.
And then they're gonna get another one because, you know, it's been 2 months.
Oh, we hear it all the time. I was on vacation, or I was gone 2 weeks in that month, and my bill was still,
Yep,
but it wasn't the month that they were in.
right.
I mean, I'm one of those people too. I didn't know that it was that, like that.
It's, yeah, it's bad. But, you know, when you think about history and when we first started, and when the city first started, you know, you can't bill somebody for something they haven't used, so you have to give them time to use it. And then we were doing everything manually, so we would let everybody use their water for a month, and the next month we go out and read meters, and then we bill it. So now we're talking about 2 months, you know, we're behind 2 months, so. But now that we have the technology to spit out a bill the next day after a meter's been read, that, you know, we need to utilize it and get ourselves up to speed, and it would make it a whole lot easier going forward to explain to citizens, you know.
There's actually a city in California, and I was doing some research, their water department is all through the phones. So if you're a member, if you have service, you get your bill on your phone, and you can pay it on your phone. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's how far advanced we are, but.
I mean, we can, you know, we can offer, we have the capability of doing that. We just need to get there.
Yeah.
How much, is there any way of even knowing approximately how much revenue you're,
About $1 million a month. That's what we generate out of
so
the,
we're, every month, we're just $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. It's just, it's there, we just don't know, or, well, yeah, we don't know how to get it.
And that's the problem we kind of inherited, is we have to figure out how to take that $1 million and get it paid, but we can't
you can't
can't
double
just
bill.
call the citizens up and say, hey, you're fixing to get a bill for 3 months.
Yep.
And is that fair to them? But it's not fair to the city
And
as a whole.
we have reached out
Write
to,
off $1 million.
we've reached out to local government, our software provider, and asked them for guidance, because, you know, they write these programs for utilities, so they're very connected to other utilities, and we have reached out to them to ask us what other cities have done that have been in the same situation,
I
because,
recommend the city of Chattanooga. That's who I've been talking with. They kind of had a situation similar to this. It was a long time ago when they had their big boom,
right.
and
It almost like you,
that's what, just my recommendation is reach out to them. They've given me a lot of help.
Phyllis,
$5 a month.
well, Phyllis, wasn't there also discussion at the planning retreat about the meter reading, the electronic version, that there's a potential issue there with the company?
Yes, sir, Mayor, that's
Yeah.
Work, batch software, currently the software that we have, they no longer
Support.
gonna exist, so we basically have to upgrade. And that's one of the things that we're hoping to be able to purchase with this year's budget, as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll be coming to you if we have the funds available. Like I said, we're still talking with, CUD, because they're considering, there's some options out there where you take the 3 meters and make it 1. I don't know that that's the right option. I definitely don't want to be the guinea pig like us in Michigan or retreat. If we had the time, we could let CUD try it, see how it works out, we could benefit from it, but we've got to weigh our options. Would we wait, or we go ahead and purchase the new software now if we have the funds available? Personally, early on, we're fully equipped with Badger. I think that it would probably be a wise choice to stay with Badger, even if it costs us a little bit more money. The problem is, I believe it's about $8,000 a year maintenance fee. That's where the month, the additional cost comes in. So, I don't think that's gonna break the bank too
No.
bad.
Now, we have, you know, like the,
We'd probably spend that in getting everyone trained on the new.
Right,
New
correct,
group.
yes.
the-
So
that-
you'll prepare us something for maybe the next meetings?
Yeah.
More in depth?
do we want to discuss that at the next week, or do we want to do that as a totally separate?
I mean, that's really, I think, more up to the mayor. I mean,
That would be,
next
I would,
Monday, we've got a lot on the schedule already.
well, I would think at the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting.
Well, that's when I brought it
Workshop,
up
Okay.
at the mayor and alderman meeting, and I was referred to discuss it at this meeting.
Well, no, at that one, it was stated that Phyllis wouldn't be there at that, and it would be more appropriate to have Phyllis there for that discussion.
Just make sure
Not-
it's on the agenda for this month's meeting and workshop.
We'll bring Allison in too, because she's well-versed on this, and we'll do some research and see what we come up with. And,
Have you talked to
Thank you.
Allison at all about this?
oh, yeah.
I
She's-
mean, okay, I didn't know. So has
She
she
stays
got
on me
some-
about it all the time.
Has she got some pretty good ideas, or?
Nothing that will not affect the citizens or
Okay.
the city, just like we've all talked about. One of the things that local government suggested that we, we could go ahead and bill the customer twice in 1 month and then give them time to pay that second bill, spread it over 6 months or whatever. But when you do that, you're messing with your disconnect list and your late fees and so there's no good way to do it. There's no system that we can say, okay, let's set these people right here aside. Now, what we had talked about was, maybe when we transition from the old system to the new system, maybe there's something we can do there.
This would definitely be something that we'd probably have a community meeting on. Would you recommend that, Bruce?
Possibly, we would need to have the scenarios in place
Right.
before we did that. I mean, once we decide on what route we would like to go, we need to educate,
Yes.
the citizens to make sure they understand why and what we're doing.
If we get the news out and let them, try to encourage them to watch the Bowman meeting, and then we can talk about it there, and they can see it on TV, and then,
And we could put, mailers in their bills. I mean, we could put some flyers in or an official letter.
Well, the most important part is when we did in the past, when we gave discounts, when we cut the water bill, it was publicized through this meeting, through the mayor and alderman. So it just makes perfect sense to show, during the times we gave water, we cut the rates on water. We need to show that it's here now. There's no more smoke and mirrors. We're at the end of the line, and we have to show them that these charges are coming, and there's no getting out of it. We either have to take the cost, or we have to disperse the cost.
Right.
And it's going to be a decision that this board will have to act on,
yeah, there's no sense in keeping on passing it.
I don't think that it was a smoke and mirror situation or a situation where the buck was passed. The situation was that we did not have the technology that we have today that would allow us to read the meters and bill all within the same, month. And that's why it started. So with the new system that's been, implemented now and in place for a while,
Well, it's been
Now-
in place for a while.
that's what I said, right?
Yeah, when we were given discounts, it was in place.
What is
What
the
discounts?
When we gave water discounts, I'm saying when
When
the
we-
previous administration gave a water discount, wouldn't that have been the time if we were
Talking
having
about a rate decrease?
the
Oh,
rate, the
yeah.
decrease?
Okay.
The rate decrease, where they save some money, it looks real good, and then here we're coming right back with, we're gonna double bill them, so.
Well,
Yeah, but that's still
a
what they
lower
use,
rate.
though,
It's
yeah.
still
It is a
lower
normal rate, but if you live week to week or paycheck to paycheck, a double bill times, 12,000 houses? $1 million is a lot of money.
But the rate has nothing to do with getting caught up on the billing. That's two
Yeah.
separate.
We
deals.
haven't
It
even
does.
discussed to see the scenario that if they're going to receive a double bill in 1 month.
No, I'm saying,
That's just
I
a
understand that, but I'm
possibility
saying,
of
at the
many
time when
possibilities.
someone was getting the discount, that would have been the time to do this, because you could.
How could you tie a decreased rate into previously used water? How could you make that accounting work?
Because it's all about that monthly bill. If someone's bill is going down $4 a month times 12 months, that would have been towards,
A really good time to increase it by the same $4?
I'm not for the increase at all. What I'm trying to do is make sure that the citizens are prepared that this is coming.
Right, but
So regardless if it's called whatever verbiage you
That's
want,
what we're doing, Vice Mayor Brown.
whatever verbiage you want to use, whether it's called smoke and mirrors, pass the buck, or it just didn't happen. Whatever verbiage you want to use. we don't need to be throwing that in there. We need to take care of it. This board does. And then move on to the next, you know.
And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, with my first response tonight, I agree with that. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's,
'Cause that past administration
it's gone.
is gone.
Passed.
And it's gonna be you one day.
Yeah,
And you're gonna be that
that's
past.
right. But
Right, because you can't see in advance, you can't see 4 years in advance how a new technology
Well-
is gonna change the water billing rates and how that's gonna impact billing when we can bill quicker than we used to
Well,
with technology.
this electronic billing though, as far as the meters, that's two, that crosses over at least two administrations that could have implemented it. Regardless of what they did, we have a decision before us as to whether to have those bills current, whether to keep them as they are. If we're going to get them current, what that process will be. So when we have this discussion at next month's meeting, basically come with your ideas on how we do that, and we can discuss that and move forward.
yes, absolutely. And just let,
Well, it should be on this month's agenda for the workshop.
May
It
2nd,
will be in May, though.
Yeah.
May 2nd,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah, let's either be the good guys for the city, the bad guys for the citizens, or vice versa. And
Well, see, that's where I take exception too. Regardless of what, it's still gonna be taxpayers' money to do it either way.
Right,
It's gonna be either out of their pocket or out of their piggy bank.
Right.
It's still gonna be citizens'
gotta
money.
be
So it's gotta be handled. And, you know, that's where we need to move on.
It's just gotta be handled.
we're gonna
That's what
move on.
Trying to bring up.
so we're gonna put that on the agenda for next week, or,
Hopefully, a couple
Two-
of weeks.
For the May 2nd workshop.
Give me a couple weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
is that too soon? Do we need to go on another, I mean, you
No,
know,
I think we can get it, something put together by the workshop. I think that's what we agreed to do, the workshop, is that right?
Yes.
We can have a discussion at the workshop, about that, and we'll try to get some,
It's 2 weeks from
Ideas together.
tomorrow, so,
hard.
it's 2 weeks from tomorrow, so.
That is all that I have for us to discuss tonight. Before you leave, I do have next week's packets to get together. I think I have already, you probably already have these once, but I want to give them to you again because I may have made a few changes or fixed a couple typos or anything like that, so I will, and
Question?
There's also, everyone's got two printouts. One was put together by Vice Mayor Brown. It shows the capital expenses, I believe, for the,
just to give credit where it's due, I requested of Phyllis and she actually
Okay,
put it
Phyllis
together,
put
but,
that.
thank you.
the capital expenses with the water treatment plant, going back to 2007, 2008 budget. And then the other form on the legal page is a water plant annual expenditure. Shows you as far as surrounding cities, municipalities that have similar populations or are close by, and it shows you their 15, 16, 17 expenses and 3-year averages. I know there was some discussion at planning as to how much we're spending, and that we spend roughly 30% more than everyone else. This kind of gives you a snapshot of the surrounding area. With that, y'all have that to review for capital discussion. You all have your packets. I'll
Mayor?
call this.
One more thing for Monday. We're going to have presentations by nonprofit, those that are requested nonprofit donations. I have not received many folks. The mayor has sent me a list of people he would like to have here to give presentations. So if the rest of you have anybody that you want us to invite to Monday night's workshop to give a presentation, please get those to me as soon as possible, either tonight or tomorrow morning, so that we can extend that invitation for them to be here Monday night.
So is this, are you talking people that's already requested funds?
Yeah, basically anybody that's on that nonprofit list, anybody you want to have a presentation from to basically explain why they want the money or why they need it.
Can you
what they're gonna
just
use
go
it for.
across the board and just invite them all?
Well, I mean, we could.
Yeah, I'd rather, I mean, if they're asking for money from our city, I'd like to at least hear what they have to say.
Okay.
It makes it simple.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, call this meeting adjourned.